Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Jim Mirriam. I'm the director of Effieciency Vermont. I had to say that because I basically have failed to introduce myself 4 out of the 5 times I've done this. And I wanted to show Bridget, who's here with me, that I can learn. So what we're here for is to give you a little presentation, not long, I promise, which is the context kind of setting of who we are, what we're trying to accomplish. I'll get started. I'm going to do introductions here just from Effieciency Vermont staff. So I'm Jim Mirriam, and I'm from Brookfield.
My name's Bridget, I'm from
George, Montreal. We're Wilmington.
And Gary?
Gary Swinler from Guilford.
I'm Kelly, I'm from Fletcher up in Franklin County.
So anyways, thanks again for coming. So this is our agenda, introduction and background, context, a discussion of our priorities. That's basically been a question session. And then wrapping up. Pretty simple. So background on Effieciency Vermont, we're actually, and a lot of people don't understand this, we're actually a regulated utility. So we are the cheapest form of power for the state of Vermont. And what we do is Effieciency buys power at 4.1 cents a kilowatt hour versus generated power at 8-something cents a kilowatt hour. So efficiency is half the cost of generated power. And that's pretty much fundamentally the reason Effieciency Vermont exists, is we help lower the price overall of the cost of electricity in the state of Vermont. And we're regulated, just like Green Mountain Power or any other utility in Vermont, by the Public Service Board. We serve the entire state with the exception of Burlington Electric, which actually has its own program. So we were created in 2000, and every utility in the state of Vermont was required to have an efficiency program. And what they did was, in those rates, there was an efficiency charge. And if you just think about it, small utility, big utility, if you're in a small little municipal utility, your options for being able to get service were pretty limited. So what the state did, the legislature did, was they combined all the efficiency programs of all those utilities and created Effieciency Vermont. And they brought out the charge, and that's that systems benefit charge that you see on your electric bill. And that's what funds primarily most of the work that we do. And I'll get into our budgets and that a little bit more. And then we focus both on electricity and heating. And when you see our budgets, a lot of people know us for electricity. We have significantly less funds to work with heating efficiency. So we work on a performance-based model, which means our compensation for running Effieciency Vermont is based on making sure we hit a series of goals. And I actually have the specifics coming up. But the Public Service Board wants us to make sure that we can deliver on things that they're planning on. When they look at the utilities and what they say, the utilities say is going to be in terms of growth in our electric use. So if you think about electric vehicles, utilities have to think, when are electric vehicles going to start coming online? Do we have enough transmission lines? Do we have enough generation? So there's these 20-year plans. We do a 20-year plan. And then what the Public Service Board does is they say, okay, we need this much from Effieciency Vermont to help balance out the rates and meet Vermont's energy needs. And to do that, they put a series of goals on it for us. Our savings are evaluated every year by an independent third party, and we run on a 3-year cycle. And we're about to start in 2015 our next 3-year cycle, which is why we're here tonight, to make sure we're listening to what people in Vermont need and want, and then we'll try to adapt our plan as much as possible to be able to meet those needs. So this is just a quick representation of the impact Effieciency Vermont on the electric side has had. This would be our usage without Effieciency Vermont, and this is what we've been able to do. And the scale on the left is a little deceitful. I'm not intentionally trying to make it look like it's 0 to 73. But that's about 13% of Vermont's energy needs. And after Vermont Yankee closes, Effieciency Vermont will actually be the largest source of power in the state of Vermont. And that's actually validated by ISO New England, which is the regional grid operator for the New England area that's responsible for making sure there's adequate power. And they actually pay us for being able to generate this electricity, which is really efficiency, and that is actually a significant portion of our thermal funding. So the efficiency work that we do, all of you do, helps come back and benefit Vermonters because we sell those savings, so to speak, to ISO New England, like it's generation, and then it comes back to fund our thermal programs. It's a complex topic that could take a long time to explain, but you're doing a good thing and it's helping us again in a different way. So this is growth on the weatherizing homes front. This is the growth in terms of the number of homes we've been able to weatherize over the years. We really didn't start weatherizing homes until 2008. And now we're up at pretty much a level of about 1,200 homes, mostly driven by limitations in funds. That's kind of the capacity we're going to be at for now. We serve all Vermonters, from low-income Vermonters to everyone above. On the heating efficiency side, the weatherization agencies in Vermont, there's 5 of them, and down here is SEPCA, Southeast
Vermont.
Community Action, thank you. Down here, they basically, I'm using crude numbers, if you make less than $40,000 a year, you're eligible for weatherization services, which is like a grant program, and they'll work with you to basically for free weatherize your home. Efficiency Vermont works with everybody 40,000 and above. So it's a pretty wide spectrum, a lot of different needs within that realm. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then we do work with the same weatherization agencies on multifamily housing. So low income or affordable housing on the multifamily side, we partner with the weatherization agencies, and basically we're the sole funder of a program called Vermont Fuel Efficiency Program. And it basically weatherizes apartments in the state of Vermont. So this number is just Efficiency Vermont's work in the single family above $40,000 income level.
So most of the home energy challenge numbers are
Would be in here.
reflected there?
Yep, exactly.
You said above, I thought you would have said below 20,000.
We do weatherization work above 40,000. The weatherization agencies do 40,000 and below, and we only partner with what? We partner with the weatherization agencies on electric services to low-income Vermonters, and we partner with them on affordable housing through multifamily apartments.
When you say you do the weatherization for people with incomes over 40,000, you're providing a
Assistance.
small incentives, audits, and assistance.
Correct. So we do not do the weatherization work. We work with a lot of the members in this room here who are contractors that are actually doing the work, working with the homeowners, and then we incentivize, promote the program. Those are all home performance with Energy Star programs. And now I'd like to see if Bridget would talk a little bit about customer service.
Thank you, Jim. As Jim mentioned, I'm the manager of customer support for Efficiency Vermont, and great turnout again at one of these forums, so glad to see so many people could come out. Good to see so many people have, and if you contact us, you might talk to Matt Kilcoyne, who's a member of my staff member, or member of my team, a staff member of my team, or some of the agents that work in the customer support group. So we handle over about 400 customer contacts a week from Vermonters across the state. And some typical questions could include, how can I reduce my electric bill, or how can I reduce my phone costs? And my team is really well prepared and highly trained to help develop that roadmap, that energy efficiency roadmap for you. And in some cases it might be a referral to a qualified contractor network. In some cases it might be a phone consultation in terms of where you should start first. No cost, low cost options to some more costly options for folks that are in a position to do a comprehensive home energy retrofit, or make retrofits in their small to medium-sized business, or might be engaged in a larger C&I project. So really my team is on the front lines to respond to any of the inquiries that come in. If you've contacted us already, I would encourage you to do so again. If you have any feedback after the session for me or for my team, it would be great to hear it. If you haven't contacted us yet, I would encourage you to do so. So I'll be around for the remainder of the meeting. If anyone has any questions about any of our programs or services, I'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you again for coming.
And if it's technical, I'll be referring all the questions to Bridget. So looking ahead to 2015 to 2017, so these are 3-year numbers. So on the electric efficiency side, our budget is $148 million, and that is funded through that efficiency charge that I was talking about that's helping Vermont buy power at half the cost of generated power. And again, in that 3-year time frame, and this is what I was talking about before, while we do both electric and heating efficiency, you see there's a lot more money on the electric side. We have close to $20 million over the next 3 years to help on the weatherization front. And that is funded, as I said, by the 2 ways. I only talked about one of them. So one of them is ISO New England pays us for all that electricity we generate, so to speak. That's the forward capacity market. And then Vermont participates in what's called, it's a carbon cap and trade in the Northeast, and it's called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And RGGI, exactly. And RGGI provides a form of funding to Vermont, and that funding goes into helping Vermonters weatherize their homes. So those 2 funding streams are the only funding streams that we have for thermal efficiency, and that's a 3-year number for it. And we have some pretty strict regulations about keeping the electric funds separate from the thermal funds. So cross-subsidy can't happen with the exception of one thing, which I'll just put out there because usually I get a question on it. If you're putting a heat pump into a home and your heat pump is the source of your heat, that's actually using electric heat. So it is in the electric efficiency's best interest to weatherize that home so you use less electricity. So if the heat pump provides 50% of the heat for your home, then 50% of the funding for a weatherization project can come from the electric funds. That's really the only cross-subsidy that we've got. And it makes sense because you're heating your home with electricity at that point. So with those budgets, this is what we need to accomplish. So these are our goals given to us by the Public Service Board for the next 3 years. So basically, for $1 in, we need to make sure that we're generating $2 worth of economic benefits. We need to save 321,000 megawatt hours. To put that into something you may understand, I understand, that's like being able to power 42,000 homes in the state of Vermont for a year. 3 and 4 here are really trying to make sure that we're helping reduce Vermont's peak in the summer and in the winter. So if you think about what sizes the transmission lines that we have, what drives how many generating plants we have, it's how much power we use in a little block of time. And in the summertime, it's driven by air conditioning. And in the wintertime, it has been increasingly becoming a problem because New England as a whole has switched from oil and coal and nuclear to natural gas. And there's not enough natural gas capacity in New England when it's cold because you're heating people's homes and you're trying to generate electricity. So in the wintertime when we're starting to reach peak events, the price of power gets very expensive. So the Public Service Board is asking us to help keep demand down, which then keeps rates down. Because anytime we're buying power that's expensive during these peak times, you may not see it instantaneously, but it all becomes part of our electric rates at some point in time. So the short of the long is one of the benefits that we can help deliver through Efficiency Vermont, in addition to helping people save energy, is we can help keep down peak loads, which then keep down all these transmission and generation costs that benefits everybody in the state of Vermont. Does that make sense? A couple nods. I'll go with that as a sign of yes. Another mandate that we have is making sure that we help provide services to low-income Vermonters. So it'd be really easy to just focus in on a few and just focus in on those that could afford efficiency, but then you start to shift the burden to low-income Vermonters. So part of this is just making sure that we make sure everyone in Vermont has the ability to participate and get benefits from efficiency. And then lastly, new again this year, is an increased focus on reducing heating costs for small businesses. And that's something of strong interest to the Public Service Board and to the state. Does that make sense? This is kind of the high level list. There's a lot of other requirements that the Public Service Board puts on us. So for instance, common theme in Bennington County last night was feeling like when you're down south, you don't necessarily get the same treatment as if you're up in the center of the state. We actually have geographic equity requirements. So we're required to deliver a certain amount of benefits to Windham County or Bennington County or Windsor or Rutland. So everybody has a target, and we get penalized if we don't hit those targets. The same thing with making sure that there's purity between business and residential. You know, we have to make sure that we just don't get the easy savings by going after businesses. Again, we have to be able to make sure we're demonstrating we're supporting everyone.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
When you say you're providing help for low-income Vermonters, they still have to ask, right? I mean,
Sometimes not. So we've tried to make it really easy. So with respect to partnering the weatherization agencies, so the weatherization agencies go in and will weatherize low-income Vermonters' homes.
when they ask.
When they ask, they have a waiting list. So there's a long, they do ask. And weatherization agencies have a lot of social services that get them involved with that community. So the awareness is there. And what we do is we tag our services onto theirs, and basically when the weatherization crews are in doing the weatherization work, they do lighting installations and they do other electric measures for us, and we pay them for it because it's more efficient to do it in one swoop that way. We also work with the food bank. So if you're picking up food at the food bank, you can get LED bulbs or CFL, compact fluorescent bulbs, for free. So there's a lot of different pathways we try to use to be able to penetrate into the low-income community. So this is what we're thinking about in terms of some things that we'd like to focus on in 2015 through 2017. So the first one is helping more Vermonters save on their heating bills. And a hypothesis we have is that while Home Performance is an excellent program, if you're one of those people that's making $40,000 a year, are you able to come up with what is typically something that's $7,200 to be able to participate in the program? And that's assuming that somebody's going to loan you the $7,200, I'm going to say. So what we're trying to find and ask, and what we're thinking about, is two things. One, is there some different ways for particularly moderate income Vermonters, because we got the 40,000 and below with weatherization. If you're above that, is there some different ways that they can go about starting to save? So as opposed to taking the big bite from the apple, are there some smaller bites that they can take to get some incremental savings? Not to ever say don't go comprehensive, but allow them easier access to do bite-sized chunks. And at the same capacity, or in the same vein, recognize that a lot of this community has a challenge getting access to financing to do the work. So it's a two-prong approach for us. One is trying to structure the right size bite, and then the second piece is trying to be able to find the right level, or find financing that'll allow them to take this on. So that's one thing. All with the goal of trying to get more people to save on their heating bills. Second one is linking customers to quality contractors and equipment. That's been a pretty strong theme for all of the meetings that we've been at. Knowing that they've got the right contractor, and then knowing that they've got the right equipment. And one of the things that we're doing on the equipment side, if you're familiar with heat pump technology, you recognize that the wrong heat pump can actually be detrimental. It doesn't operate well in cold climates. So what we're trying to do, part of this, and actually starting to link to this one, is we're working with distributors to actually put cold climate, high efficiency heat pumps stocked right at the distributors. And that the rebate and incentive is done right at the distributor, between the distributor and the contractor. So that how do I know which one's the efficient one? It's just taken care of. It's the one that's stocked at the distributor. So working with all the distributors in Vermont and the manufacturers, pairing up the most efficient cold climate heat pumps right there, and then making it easy for Vermonters from, one, not having to do the research, and then two, the contractor takes care of all of the paperwork to be able to get the incentive. And then you just have to say, I want a heat pump, and you're going to get the right product. Am I making sense? Making efficiency easy. We're trying to, and again, a theme that we've picked up on, people don't want to have to do too much extra work to be able to do the right thing. So how can we make it such that more of the work is like walking into a hardware store and being able to get a 99-cent compact fluorescent bulb or $4.99 LED. If you remember, if you're a CVPS, some of you Green Mountain Power, but the CVPS customers, I'm an old person, used to have to go in and for every bulb you had to fill out that piece of paper and write down. That's all gone, you know, and what we're trying to do is keep extending that to more and more products so that it's just by very nature of just participating and getting something, you know you're getting the right piece of equipment. Promoting, and blended into the next one, promoting new energy efficiency technologies like those LEDs, heat pumps, etc. And then lastly, aligning our work with other state goals. And what our theory here is that there's a lot of people doing really good things. And it's sometimes confusing to sort through all of the good things we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is just make sure that while sticking to our knitting, so to speak, with respect to we want to buy power for the state of Vermont at half the cost of generated, there's things that we can do that can align with other state policies, the comprehensive energy plan, and another one which is the comprehensive economic development strategy. So we help businesses buy new equipment. Why not have the state of Vermont be upfront when people are trying to recruit businesses in to say, hey, you know, you can work with Effieciency Vermont. They'll help you install the most efficient equipment possible, and you'll have lower operating costs. That's not part of the discussions right now. And what we're working with the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, which does the recruiting, is to say, hey, include us in those discussions and make this part of the sell to come to Vermont. So it doesn't change our ability to buy power for the state of Vermont at half the cost, but it actually helps other things in the state of Vermont. So that's what the last bullet's about, and that was kind of an example. So with that, these were some of the potential group discussion topics we had. I'll leave that up there, but I'm done blabbing, so I'm really willing to take whatever questions you may have now.
Is Effieciency Vermont working with both the state government, with all their facilities, and town governments, and schools and municipalities with, you know, their public buildings?
I should probably say a little bit more than just yes. On the state side, we help work with the state to create an $8 million fund. I'm looking at George, where's my fact checker? An $8 million fund to be able to improve the state building stock. We're also working with the state to, and I won't get too technical, to basically benchmark all of the buildings that they have through Energy Portfolio Manager. So basically it gives every building a rating so that the state actually knows where they should focus their attention. Doing similar things with schools across the state. Trying to get all the schools to be able to understand how their building compares to other schools in terms of energy efficiency. In the schools, we've done a few programs, basically whole school challenge, where we're trying to get the kids behind and motivated towards making their school more efficient. And I think our first school, we actually had one of those things going on this year. Municipalities, we actually have somebody that works with the municipalities, particularly the large ones, who can actually be some of the largest energy users in the state of Vermont. Wastewater treatment facilities, water pumping facilities use a lot of energy. And then we work with some of you, if any of you are on town energy committees, and some of those town energy committees in the smaller towns, we're there with the municipal street lighting programs and things like that to be able to help bolster efforts at the municipal level. I might have missed something in your list of things, but we try very hard on that. I'll get you started. We try really hard on that because that's something that when those entities participate, everyone in society benefits from it, because most of us are taxpayers in one way or another.
And a lot of the facilities were built in the 50s and 60s.
Yes. 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 Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about the energy audits and the whole structure of it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of belly aching, and so you're gonna have to monitor the time and tell me it's time for me to stop talking.
How about five minutes of belly aching? Is that good?
Hopefully, yes.
Target?
So
I'll take you up on it. I got
All
it
right,
going.
no, absolutely, absolutely. My concern about the energy audit structure is that it serves as much as of a disincentive as it serves as an incentive. And it's just the cost upfront of an audit before you can get any benefit and before you have the job done. And if you compare it to any other sort of contracting work, if I wanted to remodel my kitchen and I started soliciting bids from contractors, I do not have to pay, you name the figure, it used to be $400, $200.
400 is a good number.
I didn't have to pay a thing,
Yep.
okay? He walked in, he assessed the job, he gave me an estimate, he may sign a contract with a fixed price, or more likely he'll say it should be about this, but this, that, and the other thing could happen. If you pay $400 and the information that comes back is not presented in a very concise way that allows you to parse out what you can afford amongst that very long list, you say, I can't afford this. And not only do you not do the job, but you're out $400. And somebody asks you, so what's the story with this weatherization audit? And they say, you don't want to do that. They'll charge you $400 and quote you a price that you can't afford and don't really give you any good options about how to pay for it. What I would prefer is that we go back to the standard contractor model. And it starts out with a walkthrough. And a good contractor who's doing weatherization work, they can walk into a house, they can go into the attic, they can go into the basement. We all know attic and basement is the biggest bang for the buck. Everything else you do at a higher price yields less benefit, okay? They come up with a price that they know will cover that basement and attic, and then they include a price, an additional cost for doing the audit. So the full audit is done with the pre and the post. But you're quoted a price and you're not separating out an audit. The audit is part of the job. And I keep on getting pushback from people saying, well, you know, doing a full audit is a full day's work. We gotta get paid for that. And my response is, if it doesn't lead to a job, you may get $400 in pay, but we don't get any weatherization on a house. We don't get the larger benefit. And when I present this, I get, people look at me like I'm crazy. So we do have some contractors in the room, I understand. Why could you not do that? And then the other side of it is, Bruce Whitney's here for the heat squad. Yeah, but just so I can extend it, then we can go through the discussion.
I think you have a couple people that are willing to respond, that's all I was saying.
So the idea of funding. Heat Squad at one point had a wonderful funding source so that when you took out a loan with them, they gave you a 1-year window before you had to start paying back the loan, nor did you accumulate interest on that loan for 1 year, so that when you're paying back your loan, you're paying it back with the money that you saved with the weatherization. And so if that's laid out properly, people say, wow, this is like, I'm getting this for free. And the benefit lasts for as long as it lasts.
Right.
And they were very successful in Rutland doing that. I think that funder disappeared, and so now they can't do that. So my issue is, when you're looking at ways to make it easy and more attractive, consider those two issues of optimizing the loans so that they get a sense of benefit, and also that you blend the audits into the job, so there's not this upfront money. It can be designed so that you do the pre and the post, you'll show that you get all the benefits of the work is part of the job.
And before I let a contractor speak, and I can't make promises, that's one of the things we're trying to do is find, and I worked on this on Tuesday, is trying to bring in some outside capital to the state of Vermont that is low cost, long term.
Right.
So that you can actually create what I call a cash flow positive scenario, so that what you're saving exceeds what you're paying back on a monthly basis. Totally agree with you. And I totally agree with you on the simplicity part of it. And I don't know if there's a contractor that wanted to respond to the audit piece. I'll go with this gentleman.
We have learned a lot from energy audits. Before we started having energy audits done on properties, we guessed a lot. And yes, we know that certain areas need special attention, but my expertise has grown exponentially through the energy audit process and learning. I can go into a house now and without the audit be much more efficient. Even without an audit, I can say, okay, you gotta do this, that, and the other thing, and this part is not cost effective and this part is. And
Do you have to keep learning it? Or if you've learned it, you've learned it.
No. No.
So then it may have served a purpose in the past, but it's not serving a purpose.
You're not listening to me, that's not the case.
Okay.
We learn from every job. And I'm sure even Chad and Junio learn from every job they do. The problem we have is, if I'm going to come in and do a kitchen for you, I'm not going to give you a price until I do some design work.
Right.
And that design work is going to cost you some money.
It's blended into the price, isn't it?
No, in general, we do our design work separate from the price of the work. Anyway, the point is that just like you can't have the energy audit done and then not be able to do the project, I can't afford to come in and do some design work, or if I were an energy auditor, I need to make something from it. And
You do. It's built into the price that you quote.
yeah, but as you
You're not
say,
gonna quote the price without the cost.
but
of
as
the
you
energy.
say,
I'm going to give you 30 more seconds.
okay, as you say, very often you can't afford to do, people can't afford to do the whole job at once.
Right.
And I think a way that auditors could improve their reports is to prioritize that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to wade through that, even though we're used to looking at it, it's a little bit hard to wade through. And they could prioritize their list of things to do a little bit better.
It's sort of like the chunks issue that you brought
We-
up.
we-
Go for the biggest bang for the buck. You know
But
that.
I totally agree with you, and I just wanted to give you a.
Okay, no.
And we kind of call it good, better, best in
Yeah.
terms of chunking it up. Yes, sir.
I've some
Oh,
basic
I'm sorry.
reasons for why that doesn't work on a contractor level and also on a program level. So on the contractor level, there's the basic, we need to get paid for the work that we do somewhere. And so I understand the integrating it into the price. The problem is, the cheaper that we make our audits, the less likely someone is going to do the work. Because more people will actually go and get audits and not value that process. They need skin in the game. I used to work for the Mass Save auditing program, and I did a lot of audits. I did at least 2 audits a day, 5 days a week. And doing those 2 audits a day, 5 days a week, I would get less people to come and actually do work from that than I do 2 audits a week. 1/5 as many audits, and I get less, and I get more people actually wanting to participate. So there's that basic idea of.
But if you folded the price in, you could basically fold the price of a $400 audit, as long as it's folded in.
Yeah, but the problem.
So you don't give away $100 audit.
Yeah, I'm Junio's boss, and we've had
All right.
this discussion. I hate energy audits.
Okay.
I hate them. I hate the structure of the whole thing. But for anyone in Vermont to get rebate money, you have to have the audit done.
And that's why I
And for-
want to make
and-
certain that we have this discussion, so you do
and-
get the rebate.
And for me, to pay 2 auditors to go out and audit people's homes. And if we're only closing, say, 2 out of 5 audits that we do, I can't afford to hire Junio and his other partner if we're not charging for the audits. Now, I could roll it into the job and say to you, okay, Jeff and I have come in and said, you need your attic done, you need your basement done, and here's what you're gonna receive. Junio might come in and say, that's true, but you've also got air leakage here, here, and here that needs to be addressed. So if we come in and say to you, we're gonna do your attic and we're gonna do your basement, we're guessing. We're gonna do the work, you're gonna get some improvement. But if we come in and say, Junio's done the audit, you need your attic done, you need your basement done, you need this air sealing done, at the end, you're getting a whole house approach that's more efficient and more effective than me just saying, screw it, I'm gonna roll the $400 into the price of the job, because yes, you might feel better that that's been a more fair approach, but in some respects, we've guessed at what needs to be done.
So my logic is that you start out with a guesstimate, you make it clear that it's a guesstimate, you make it clear that you're gonna do an audit, and the audit may uncover things, and you will price everything that it uncovers in addition to the audit, and
Yeah.
everything is very straightforward and very
That's
clear.
That's fine if we have a signed contract to begin with, but if I'm paying him $40,000 a year, and he's only getting 1 job a week because the homeowner wants it rolled into a job, then I'm not covering my costs, and then I'm out of business and you have nobody who can do it.
I don't understand that. I mean,
Okay.
the audit is part of the job. You come and you.
So I'm gonna call the discussion on that one. Did you want to, hopefully not tag on? This gentleman next to you.
No, I realize it would be a controversial issue.
No,
I think it deserves a lot of discussion.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And before I ask your question, I mean, I actually
No,
I want to thank you for bringing the question up, and I want to thank all the contractors that were willing to actually respond to that. To make you guys feel special, this is a richer dialogue in that particular vein than we've had in any of these community forums. So thank you for being so bold.
And I'm Bruce Whitney, I'm with the Neighborworks Heat Squad in Norm, and I had many conversations. So I really appreciate the rich dialogue, and we want to continue to have that rich dialogue with Efficiency Vermont and the contractors. Thank you for having these forums, thank you for doing all this work. On the financing piece, you're right. We had that good financing from the Department of Energy. It went away. It went away too soon. My boss is going up to meet with Jim next week. I hope we can talk about the financing option, because I think that's where we have the strongest possibility for partnership. So thank you for having that opportunity.
Yes, sir.
With the CEDF being coming out and being available, why would you go and pursue a grant for the that fund to provide the same funding that the Energy Department had before?
For NeighborWorks, in terms of the
for the funding that the federal government provided
Yep.
before.
Yeah.
From the CEDF?
Yeah, and then because that's like, what was it, $5 or $10 million that Entergy put in?
I thought that a lot of that money though was to be focused on Windham County.
Half of it is supposed to be focused.
Oh, and you're saying for down here for that,
Well,
yes.
and, I mean, and it was to go to clean energy development, not thermal efficiency. We had that conversation with them. Ted Montgomery had that conversation in a vigorous way with them. The Heat Squad does have an application before the Economic Development Fund, in which we hope to roll out a new business model that will be based
Even
on.
though their main goal now in the next 3 years is for wood pellet technology.
The
So,
CEDF. Yeah, that was the clean energy that they chose.
But at the same time, is with pellet technology, if you basically want to have efficient pellet technology, you got to have an efficient home. So can you blend that in to basically then get a grant for a portion of that, be able to continue that on, especially highlighted in Windham County?
And the answer was no.
Wow. We need to get the legislators involved with that.
Yes, ma'am, and then I'll come to you.
And I'm sure there's other topics too, but before we leave this, I'd just like to say from the work of so many energy committees last year with the Home Energy Challenge, I would say that trying to figure out the best way to handle the audit, which the cost of it does seem to be an obstacle to people, because we would pass out, information and we'd say, And people would just say, I can't afford to do that, you know, $400, or even with the $100 subsidy. So it deserves some discussion, and I understand, it's like intriguing, the idea, or not intriguing, it's perplexing, the idea that you could do a lot of them and have fewer jobs in the end. So it's like, oh, so on the one hand, it's an obstacle, on the other hand, making it too cheap maybe is not the right way to go. But we've got to put more minds to try to figure out how to get rid of the obstacle aspect of it.
I think that there's data that shows that free audits doesn't necessarily lead to more jobs.
Right.
And that's been tried by a lot of groups across the nation. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it goes back to what a lot of that gentleman said, is a lot of, who wouldn't want a free audit? And that ends up clogging up the system, and you don't feel like, sometimes when you put $400 into it, there's a psychology associated with it that, damn it, I'm gonna get my $400 back, so I'm gonna go through the rest of it. So I don't know all what that trigger point is, but free audits have had a history of not leading to more jobs. Yes, ma'am.
I want to go to your last bullet point there and
This one?
highlight the partnership aspect. When a homeowner puts a lot of effort and money into energy efficiency upgrades to the home, perhaps solar, a solar array for net metering, that kind of thing. And then perhaps wants to market that home. What can be done across the state to emphasize or highlight the attractiveness?
The enhanced value of that home.
Exactly, because right now, I can tell you that people looking at homes that are energy efficient think it's a nice bonus, but they don't want to pay for it.
Correct.
So it's how do you partnership with entities around the state to not only highlight that aspect, that this home is a value-added property because it has these features, and you know, sort of encourage that view of Vermont as being, we really want to go and look for that kind of thing.
That's a great question, and that's actually a policy question with Mr. Twigg. I'm going to call on you again, even though I know the answer much better now after you said it last night. I'm going to let him talk about that one a little bit. So, you want to come up this side?
All right, so I've worked on this issue a little bit in the legislature and then also since. So there is a process underway where Efficiency Vermont's been working with NeighborWorks and the weatherization agencies and some others with coming up with a standard labeling system for homes that have had energy efficiency improvements. So it'd be something that's not just simply like a number, but something that really is descriptive of, you know, how efficient is the home, what is it going to say versus an average home, what does that mean in terms of dollar savings, carbon savings, other metrics like that. And it's something that would be standardized across the state. So whether you were getting your home improved by Efficiency Vermont or Heat Squad or low income weatherization, would be a standardized format. And we've had realtors involved in developing this, we've had appraisers involved in this to think just from the home resale perspective, is this something that's going to be useful and attractive as part of the sales process? So work is continuing on that. I think, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to start to roll that out, but that is a key issue that we've identified, that you have to be able to capture the value, because you know, if you redo your kitchen, everybody can see your granite countertops, and you know, you want to pay for that, but you can't see spray foam insulation or air sealing, and so there has to be a way to characterize the value of that. So it is something that we're working on.
Will this be just to follow up? Will this be sort of a separate place where you go to find these properties, or will this be just rolled into your general real estate listing kind of a thing where anybody walking in would be able to see, oh, this home doesn't have, but this home does?
Sure.
Somehow identify that way, or is it going to be is the idea being that it will be a separate location where you, either on the web or somewhere where you go to find these properties?
Hopefully all of the above, in that it would be a label that you might actually have like on your house, like on your electric box, for instance. but there would also be in the marketing materials that if you're working for a realtor, that they would have to provide along with other disclosures. And then we've also been working with folks like Picket Fence Preview and the MLS, the people who do the realtor listings, what's called the MLS system, where if you go to one of those websites to look at listings, that just as there are little tick boxes now for how many square feet and how many acres, that there could also be something that speaks to the energy performance of the home. So we're trying to work on this so when we can roll it out, it would be something where that information would be just as available as any other information about it.
Hallelujah.
A follow-up on that, I understand that like an idea like this has been proposed and considered in the legislature, but that there's a strong opposition, like from real estate agents who don't want the bad homes to then look bad. So do you have is that fading, or is that still there?
So everything gets an A, and then you get A plus, and A plus plus, and A plus plus.
Right, all the homes are above average.
Exactly.
So there were some legislative proposals to make that actually a mandatory requirement. So to say, before you could sell your house, you would have to actually get it essentially rated for its performance, and that would have to be part of the disclosure, just like if you had to disclose like asbestos or lead paint or other things like that. The real estate industry objected quite strongly to that, feeling like it interfered with the sales process and that it would discriminate against older housing stock in Vermont, I suppose you could say. So that proposal did not prevail, so what we've been working on now is trying a voluntary approach to try to essentially move it through the market, because a lot of realtors do recognize they have customers asking them about, well, what are the fuel bills, what is the energy performance, and they want to try to do the right thing, so we're trying to work it on more of the voluntary side of things to see if that works. There was a state law that was put in effect to move this process forward, and one of the things it does say is, I think in 3 years there'll be an evaluation. If it seems like the voluntary approach is not being effective, a mandatory approach then might be considered to actually try to push the market further.
Yes, sir.
Related question I'm relating to my wife. One of the things that we've been doing actually is, since we insulated our home and put the solar apparatus up, is I would have something on the dining room table which I would generate. I would physically generate myself. This is how much credits we have now with the electric company. This is what it's worth. This is how much fuel we used before we did the installation. Here it is now. How many cords of wood are we burning as opposed to before? Now, this is the sort of thing I think if you could provide us, people who've done this, with the proper format, which is very official, before we even start to get the legislative goodness going. Just to do that with a nice looking piece of equipment that isn't handmade. It's got
maybe a little gold embossing.
Yeah, a little gold embossing, that sort of thing, and then it could be.
It's called a computer screen.
Come right off the computer, just print it off the computer.
Yeah, right.
If we can get on to your website.
Yep.
Because every month I have to change it, because we've saved that much more energy, and we've got that much more electric.
So you're going to have a little calculator that basically, once you put in basic information,
You can still give it to the real estate agent, but our experience has been, oh, that's interesting.
Right.
It's not something that real estate agents do now, because we're the avant-garde right now.
Right.
They're not really that interested in this, because it's just another thing they have to remember. So I did before. So I'd like to see that attitude change as well.
Is there any realtors in the crowd? Okay, good. But they're not going to admit it now. Yes, ma'am, let me go there first.
So, are you speaking to the financial institutions as well?
Yes, absolutely.
I know you guys don't care about me, I'm off-grid, so I have absolutely no effect on you. However, the lending institutions have they have no system and places to put houses that have these things.
Right.
If you have an off-grid home, you cannot get a fixed rate mortgage unless you're going to a very particular bank, blah, blah, blah. So I think that the financial institutions need to be involved in these decisions too. And are these the places where incentive may come from? Can you drop a point off of a mortgage because you were efficient?
Right.
And
Right, because you have actually in reality, the person that has the efficient home has a higher likelihood of having the cash to be able to make that mortgage payment. Because they're not spending all their money on
they're also less
heating and
likely to
electric.
leave their place. They're also less likely to leave their
Right.
home. They're going to pay that mortgage out in their
Right.
lifetime. So, just pieces.
We have.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about wood heating a little bit, because I've seen in the, I think it's the CEDF, and also in your discussion, you talked about pellets and chips. And there is modern wood heating, which still uses cordwood.
Yep.
And although pellets and chips have a number of advantages, there's an awful lot of people in Vermont,
That chunk
including low-income people, who burn cordwood. And there are now efficient cordwood burning appliances that meet the EPA standards that can be sold in Vermont, not like the old outdoor wood furnaces that can no longer be sold here. Somehow the terminology in the legislature or in the CEDF or the public, Department of Public Service has created the term modern wood heating to exclude cordwood. And I think that's a mistake, because there's an awful lot of cordwood users in the state. A lot of them are low-income users.
Yep.
And there are efficient ways to burn cordwood, and it's good for the
economy,
and for the foresters.
Yep.
So it's sort of unfortunate that pellets and chips, which are great, are a lot more expensive than burning cordwood. And cost effectiveness ought to be as much of an issue as efficiency if you're trying to deal with, if you're trying to serve the low-income part of the population.
Yes, that was a theme that we got definitely in Franklin County, and to a lesser extent in some of the other ones, but definitely in Franklin County, you know, people that are harvesting on their own land, trying to do the right thing, and how can we help them out. So what I do with these notes, so George and Kelly will take notes of every question that's asked, and what I do, and I'm going to get to an answer to you, so this is all germane, is those get typed up, and tomorrow I will send to everybody on staff every question that gets asked in a raw format, no matter how harsh the question may be. And the intent there is to make sure that these forums are for us to be able to understand what's on your mind. And I don't want to sugarcoat that to the staff, to the people that are helping provide those services. So I put it back. And because one of those questions was the frustration about chunkwood, I've already gotten 2 responses back to say, hey, I want to take a look at this. I think I can make this work. Not to get into the weeds, there's a process that we have to go through to justify that our investments are delivering that slide that says $330 some odd million worth of benefits. They think they know a way, I can't promise, but they're looking at being able to justify that we can create benefits out of incentivizing people to do cordwood. And everything we do has to be able to demonstrate cost effectiveness. Everything we do and ask Vermonters to do has to be cost effective. So that's a great question. We've got that comment before, and it was great to see staff jump on that to see if they can try to solve that problem. So I can't promise, but it's on the list. This gentleman, then that gentleman, I'll get you, ma'am. How about that?
Do you have information on your website on the cold climate heat pumps, which are that work the best for us? Is that something that you've done already? Or
Yes.
Okay.
And you want to say the quick?
Yep, there is a site on our webpage that has sort of the eligibility requirements. We don't have really a full vetted list right now of products quite yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's
So
a
does
guide.
that go up December, beginning of December?
It should be rolling out at the beginning of December.
Okay.
But there is some information about the performance levels and where they should fit. It doesn't have exact model numbers or manufacturers
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
But
But
at
it gives
least
you an
give you
idea
that
of where we're
guidance.
looking at in terms of the efficiency
Okay.
ratings and things
Okay.
like
And
that.
then I have been told, and they have promised, that we should have something up in the beginning of December of a cold climate heat pump program.
Okay.
And there you will have the models, and those will be the ones that will be stocked at the distributors all across the state. And that's what's taken us a little time, is just to get the manufacturers and the distributors together and agreed so that they're stocked. And then I get you next, ma'am.
Yeah, about lending institutions. I was thinking about, I work for a company that works with banks and their foreclosures, and a lot of the properties that I deal with are just hopelessly inefficient, and I'm sure that the the reason they went into foreclosure was because people made a choice between heating or paying their mortgage. But these properties are just hopeless. I mean, you could do an energy retrofit on them, up the, all the way, do whatever you could, but they'd still be hideous, horrible homes that people wouldn't want to live in. And I'm wondering if there could be some kind of program like Cash for Clunkers that you get the banks involved with, where they could somehow write off the cost of the mortgage that they've lost because of the foreclosure, if they would, allow the house to be torn down, just to get it out there, just like Cash for Clunkers. We got all those gas guzzlers off the market.
I'm going to let this gentleman respond. He's not asking you a question. Go for it.
Yeah, I work for Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust, and VHFA does have a program where we use federal financing to buy foreclosed properties, renovate them, always weatherize them as much as we can, and then sell them at an affordable rate. Again, it's not enough money.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, you're saying-
I'm saying like get them off.
Tear them down.
Tear them down, get rid of them, because these are like homes that, there's some.
Well, yeah,
some
some we did tear down, but.
Well, that's the whole point. It's like the banks can get some kind of credit for the loss they've taken if they take them out of existence. Because these homes will never be, they'll never work.
And
as energy prices go up, and they're just terrible homes. They were built 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're not well built. They weren't well built to begin with. They need to be taken off the.
A similar challenge is with mobile homes. And the mobile home market for a lot of people is use mobile homes.
They're not foreclosed because they don't get mortgages.
Right, but the interest rate's like a car loan. It's a low upfront cost, but you're trapping somebody into a cycle of high energy bills and something that's depreciating in value every year. One of the things that we're working on with VHCB, Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, the High Meadows Fund, which is a philanthropy fund, is we placed 14 high-performance mobile homes across the state this year. And they're basically a net zero mobile home replacement. So they have the same footprint as a mobile home. They're designed to be able to go into a mobile home park. But you can actually get a real mortgage on them. They're an asset that doesn't depreciate over time. And if you look at the life cycle cost, when you factor in energy costs, being put into that home and its mortgage payment is better off than going into that low upfront cost mobile home that's just going to keep you in debt and depreciates in value over time. So anyways, ma'am, you've been very patient.
Oh, so how is Efficiency Vermont addressing heating fuel use, especially oil?
That's a broad question. So on a variety of fronts, on the oil side, in terms of if people are staying with oil, we would help incentivize people to move to a more efficient heating system. We work to make sure that people are weatherizing their homes to reduce overall. December 1st, or that sometime in December, we will have a heat pump program where we're not asking people to get rid of their heating system, but heat pumps on an equivalent basis are about $1.50 a gallon to operate, equivalent to $3.50, $3.75 for oil. So by having heat pumps put in, that helps reduce the overall energy costs and energy use for oil. Weatherization, efficiency, and then alternatives with biomass. If you have oil that heats water, we just ran a pilot on solar hot water. What else?
Financing.
Oh, thank you. Good one. Yep.
In collaboration with the Public Service Department, we just rolled out a financing option for standalone heating systems. So that's a new offer.
And that's actually working with the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association. In the last X years, they've sold 40% less oil. So they recognize there's a trajectory for their services. So many of the progressive dealers, fuel dealers, are trying to expand into energy services. And we see a good partnership there because they're going into the homes every year, every month, depending. There's a good relationship. We're trying to leverage that. This financing program helps particularly low-income and moderate-income Vermonters upgrade their heating systems at basically either 0% interest or 1.9% interest.
Falling price of oil affecting those decisions? Certainly not from the
not-
planetary and the energy
not-
loss, but from the expense side.
I mean, you probably get an influx of calls when stuff goes up.
Mm-hmm.
But $350 versus $375 for a lot of these people, your LIHEAP check, if you're a low income, your LIHEAP check is not, it's only paying for, you know, you get maybe 40% of your fuel covered as opposed to, you know, 35. So it's still stuff that drives them.
I'm wondering if Efficiency Vermont has any relationship with, say, for instance, Green Mountain Power when it comes to the credits that accumulate if you have solar, that Green Mountain Power at least, I don't know if they've changed, but until fairly recently were very vague about what happens with those credits. As you continue to accumulate them, it's really a taking by the power company of that extra energy that you're flowing into the grid, and they're not saying whether they're going to take that away, whether they're going to send you a check, whether they're going to do whatever is going to happen with that credit ultimately. And I'm wondering, again, as you know, as incentive or disincentive for somebody to tie into the grid with this electricity, would be a disincentive if you accumulate all this credit, but then you don't really know, other than your own private use, whether the bulk of it's going to go away at some point.
I think, and I don't know if you want to talk your Green Mountain Power, right? Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk to that or not. I think a lot of that is driven by also the net metering law. And I could be wrong on that, but I have a solar array, but I don't produce more than I consume. So the way I remember the net metering back when I was in the business, so to speak, and unless the law has changed, at the end of the year, basically, it's kind of trued up. If you overproduced at the end of the year, the law was basically, it's gone.
You
So
get
it's
a
trying
check
to.
if you ask for it.
What?
You get a check if you ask for it, but you have to ask for it by May, right?
Not anymore.
All right, okay. So it ended.
Review and let them use those credits and pay you for them, you know, set up something
Well,
like that.
the group net metering I know is an option, but I'm not sure how, what would you say, how easy it is to do.
I think it's simple. It's a simple thing. You just have to find a neighbor and figure out an arrangement.
I'm group net.
Have them buy the excess.
It's all with Green Mountain Power, and it's all transparent.
And
I installed a geothermal heating system about 3 years ago. I could get federal incentives, but at that time, Green Mountain Power had no incentives for geothermal systems.
Green Mountain Power, Efficiency Vermont.
Efficiency Vermont,
Yeah,
sorry. So, is there any, since they're now recognizing that geothermal systems exist and there is, can I get some money back in retrospect?
Self-servingly,
A retrocentive? Can I get a retrocentive for my good works?
No.
The short answer is no.
That's what I assumed, but I figured I gotta ask.
Karma points.
Didn't have it, I got a couple credits in there.
Yeah.
I want to ask, I've become a big fan of the LEDs, and I'm really pleased that Efficiency Vermont is subsidized so that I can go to our local hardware store and get them for $5. And so I just wonder, like, do you have any idea how many of the lights in Vermont are LEDs? Like, is the penetration getting good, or is it small? And how good an idea would it be for you guys to spend $100,000, like getting more people to put LEDs, and like how, and do a calculation as to how much electricity that might save?
We do. So lighting, ballpark, lighting produces about, I would say, 1/3 of our savings. And this year, I'd say this current year, we'll probably sell, I'm gonna guess, close to 1 million bulbs, or help, not us personally sell, but incentivize close to 1 million bulbs. It's in that ballpark. I might be off a little bit. What's interesting is in the last year, the percentage of LEDs in that growth. I think right now 40% of the bulbs are LED. Certainly 18 months ago, it would probably have been like 1%.
Yeah, I think you should like dunk the CFLs. Why even mess with them anymore?
It's a nice
It's a good comment.
a nice transitional lighting, but it's not.
Yeah, it was, so again, it's just from making sure that we can help serve all. The 99-cent CFL is a very...
Take your money and make the LEDs 99 cents. What if you did that?
Well, it gets back to this one. And making sure that we can help generate this and that we can get to, you know, we have to be able to achieve this much savings. So if we spend more money on getting people to do that, we achieve less savings. So it's a balance. You know, you're getting, it's a great question, and it's something that we play with all the time, so to speak, or think about, because we don't try to jump things up and down all the time. If you lower it too much, then everybody's on board, but they start to become expensive savings. So what's that right threshold to get people to do it, because that's what we're trying to do, and maximize the benefit back to Vermont? How do we leverage those funds as much as possible? And on the 99-cent CFL, I hear you, and I assume that soon it will be retired. But buying down LEDs is fairly expensive. If you look, like I don't know if you get the, down here, if you get an Ace Flyer or something like that. I mean, I love it when they have special red hot deal, and the bulbs are more expensive than what we do, and they're an inferior bulb. And they're expensive, so you know, as time progresses and the price of LEDs, which have gone down, continues, we'll be able to afford buying it down more because we'll still be able to hit our savings target. But for right now, that's that sweet spot. The one thing, and I'll let you go to you, sir, is I expect sometime in the beginning of, which is what I've been looking for, and sometime in 2015, the LEDs will actually start to surpass CFLs in sales, which is pretty amazing. And the quality, if you don't have an LED, quality of light is fantastic. If you have a cold house like I do intentionally, they actually come on when you turn it on. You don't have to wait for it to heat up. And they last forever.
If the quality control's there.
Yeah, and the thing that we do...
Some of the early ones were not, just like with the CFLs.
Oh yeah, the CFLs is a different story. On the LEDs, we've got incentivized bulbs that are high quality, and they will last. Yes, sir. Thank you for being patient.
Well, I want to pick up on the inferior bulb that you mentioned, because my experience has been got from Efficiency Vermont dimmable CFLs that won't light if they're dimmed more than a tiny amount, and their lifetime is very poor. So I'm wondering what your process, your quality process that you use to select the bulbs that you incentivize, because my experience has been the CFLs are not good.
Well, I think in that case, it's probably the dimming controls versus the bulb. So dimming controls mostly have been made for incandescent bulbs, so there's a certain amount of wattage they're expecting. And whether it's a triac or some device inside that helps, chop that power down such that it lowers the thing, it's not expecting that you've got a low wattage LED in there, so it has a hard time reacting.
I understand technically, but the problem is that the people who pick up the bulbs
don't understand.
Don't know that.
Yeah. Good point. We'll recaptured it, and that part will go back to the efficient product group. Yes, sir.
I'm Franklin Geist. I'm from the town of Rockingham, just outside of Saxon's River. And I'm here because I'm involved with the River Artisans Cooperative, and we're in a small building, an old building, and it's very inefficient. The windows steam up, the windows form ice on the inside in the winter. The floor is colder than cold. It's just totally inefficient. And one of your items of your bullets there was the services for small business. And that's why I'm here. I knew nothing about Efficiency Vermont until I saw the flyer a couple weeks ago at one of our member meetings.
Do you want to talk about the building performance program?
Yes, so we do have a program that helps weatherize small businesses. Through the Building Performance Institute program and Building Performance, we offer incentives up to $5,000 to help you weatherize your home. There's sort of a process. Business, Building Performance. There's a process where you have to get an audit done, sort of what we were talking about before, through the same network of qualified contractors. They'll make some recommendations and present you with a work scope, and then we'll review that and then offer an incentive for you to help you complete the work. There's also some financing options that we have for small businesses as well. So depending on your situation, we can probably help you out with a couple of those things.
Yeah, some of our question is do we, as the cooperative, have to put all the bills, or is there a chance that how do we get the person who owns the building to help cover some of this?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we both thrown that.
That's the person.
Looking at one of the case studies that we have on our website for Win Stanley Enterprises and New Chapter here in Brattleboro, this is exactly the scenario that you're speaking of. It's a tenant-landlord situation. There was a big lighting project there that had a lot of savings potential attached to it. New Chapter pays the electric bill, but Win Stanley's the landlord who owns the lights. So it was this kind of standoff. Nobody wanted to invest in the project. We put the numbers before both parties. We showed New Chapter what they'd be saving on a monthly basis. We showed Win Stanley the same thing. Win Stanley, the landlord, decided to bankroll the project. New Chapter paid them back on a basically internal lending arrangement, and it worked out pretty well. They paid the project off in about 2.5 years. So I don't know if your landlord is open to that type of arrangement, but that's one way that we got that situation to work.
And is that a story on the website?
It is.
Case study? So on our website, we have that case study, and I would actually even add in that maybe first round, if you wanted to have the property manager give a call to Bridget, that may be a good way to just prime him on the benefits. And then maybe point into the case study that also can demonstrate how this could work. And I'm sure Chuck would be a local testimony at any point in time. I'm happy to take questions the rest of the night, I'm serious. It is a little after 7:30, so if you have to go, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys coming. I'm not kicking you out. I'm here, so if you have questions, keep them coming. Yes, sir.
How does community solar fit into your plan?
Community solar fit into our plan. So historically, Effieciency Vermont has not played a role in photovoltaics or solar. And part of that was actually, previously we were not allowed to be in the generation business. Now we can be, but there's this process that kind of goes back to that chunk wood, the wood discussion that we have. Everything we do has to be deemed cost effective. And in the screening method for cost effectiveness that we operate under, solar is not cost effective. That is something that our regulators are looking at to see if they've got the right cost of some of the avoided costs like carbon and other in there to be able to make sure that that cost effectiveness test is set up correctly. But right now, it's not an eligible measure because it doesn't go through our screening measure. It's a little arcane answer, but we can't incentivize it. We support it, but we can't incentivize it. You have a question? Yes, sir.
Time of day pricing from utilities has been very slow in coming, and yet it would seem that it would be helpful to help reduce your summer peak and your winter peak instead of can you do, or are you doing something to try and push the utility companies to make better use of the smart meters and get time-of-day pricing tariffs into place?
So we have worked with one utility to pilot, Vermont Electric Co-op, to pilot some time of use to see what the effect was, and studied it on a different, making sure that we weren't penalizing people. How did the consumer end up, the ratepayer end up at the end of that day? I don't think they've come up to a conclusion on what that looks like. Can I ask you, with Green Mountain Power doing with respect to time of use, do you have any time of use rate structure?
For what?
Residential.
You know they're working on it, and we're actually able to repair for it.
So it's in the works.
Next year.
What we're doing with a couple things on the smart meters that we're actually working on. One was in collaboration with Green Mountain Power. Is last summer we did something which was a pilot where on a peak event day, we actually reached out to people to see if they could lower their peak. And then using the smart meters gathered information to the next day, let them know how they did. And then starting 2 weeks from now, we'll be working with 90 or 100,000 Vermonters in being able to take the information that we have on from the smart meters to basically send out personalized reports to everyone, those 90 or 100,000, I forget the exact number, of people to basically say, this is how your home and your usage compares to an average size similar home in Vermont. And then based on what it sees in the data, may make some suggestions to you on how you could lower your usage. And then it tracks it over time for you and helps encourage people to conserve energy all along the way.
You can also log into the website, or
Get that on
and you can view your usage. Can you see your neighbors?
And this thing that's coming out, and it's in Green Mountain Power territory, because Green Mountain's been really good with sharing the data quickly with Effieciency Vermont, the AMI data, or smart meter data. This goes beyond just like looking at a graph. It's actually trying to analyze, understand from how the energy use is being used over the course of the day to give you smart tips based on algorithms that have been used literally on millions of utility customers in the United States to help people conserve. So there's a good chance that if you're a Green Mountain Power customer, you will have access to that. I'll go to the, yes?
Okay, with the use, with your incentivizing the cold climate air
Heat pump.
source heat
Yep.
pumps, will that bring Effieciency Vermont into some kind of a winter peaking utility situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So are we helping drive that? So our point there is because going back to our previous conversation, oil at $3.50 or $3.75 a gallon versus $1.50, heat pumps are happening. And what we want to make sure is that the most efficient heat pumps are being put in, and that we can also try to promote home weatherization and all of those things at the same time. It's going to happen, so what can we do to help mitigate that? And then also at the same point in time, what are other things that we can do, and that's why that goal was given to us, to help reduce winter peak. So yes, we are helping grow, but at the same point in time, we have a strong incentive to try to push down in other areas as much as possible, and to make sure that growth is as small as possible. Chuck?
Jim, are we also trying to prioritize displacing some electric resistance heat with heat pumps? And thereby
I mean, absolutely, we're trying to find all of those things. But once we do go into working with distributors and contractors, you know, we don't know what somebody's going to be doing in their home with it. We could be displacing oil and other things. Yes?
This may be more an idea actually for the legislature, but does Effieciency Vermont have any role to play in terms of like developing an enforceable building code? It seems to me it's ridiculous that any new homes should be built that are not, like maybe even net zero. Like why don't we have a law to push that? But
we are adopting a more stringent building code. And it's not, we could adopt frankly anything, but if you don't enforce it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
That is a hot topic for a lot of people. I believe the official entity that's responsible for enforcement is the fire marshal. And it's complicated because, you know, some towns just don't have the means to do this. And I think that's a good topic to bring up to your legislator. Because it's beyond some towns' capabilities, and I don't mean that in a diminishing way. It's a statewide issue, and that's a common theme that has come up, that particularly for builders that are building to code, there's another group that may not be building to code. And you create a real disadvantage to the person that's actually following the law. And then I think it's just in general, it's I think last night somebody was asking Ms. White, she walked into a big box or a store, and it sounded like the store wasn't built to code and wanted us to incentivize that business to get them to code. Well, that's actually a misuse of public funds, because that building should have been built to code. And to put public funds into that is actually wasting those funds. We want to be able to take that building that's built to code and try to push them beyond code and as cost effectively as we can go. That's actually the best use of public funds. So it's unfortunate that we're actually even in a dialogue of trying to talk about newer structures coming up to code. It's a good point. I talked to you legislator. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. This was a really productive forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.